Hello, testing, testing. This is such a new environment for me. I'm really excited. I am going to be answering your questions about me. Um, and look, I've got everything set up. You want to come up? Come on. Come on. What do you say to the camera? Charming. Okay, so I've got a coffee. The sun is out, although I think I'm being a bit premature with my excitement for summer. And yeah, and we're going to have a chat and just get to know each other a little bit more. Firstly, a few updates. I have just been, I don't know how to explain it, like struggling with my self-identity, I suppose you could say. I don't really know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. I feel like my brain has just completely wiped any information about how to be human and how to be a person. It's gone. I don't know where it's gone. We're going to work on getting it back. So I thought I would actually come back to YouTube and yeah, I hope you're all doing well. Grab a coffee, grab a glass of wine, grab a fucking Guinness, and I'm going to waffle at you about my life. I have moved you in a bit because then I can... Why the fuck is that all echoed? It's flashing pink. Okay, we are working. Fucking hell. So, where was I born? Northern Ireland. I was born in Northern Ireland, County Antrim. My dad and mum met in Kent, actually. My mum's from Kent. My dad's from Glasgow, so he's a very thick Scottish accent. And he was based down there because that's where the Royal Engineers Barracks are. They met out in, I think, Chatham or Dartford, in the old clubs around there. And I think they'd known each other for about 6 weeks, and then they got married and moved to Northern Ireland, which is where they had moi. I'm actually named after my mum's midwife, but hers was pronounced Ailish. It was with the E, like Billie Eilish. But she liked it with the A, and here I am. I was born thus. The worst thing to ever happen to my parents. No. Then my dad we moved back to the barracks, and that's where I completed most of my schooling. And I also, when I go home, I'm the only one to have this accent because I don't know whether I just put it on growing up, call it autism, call it what you want. But then obviously going through uni and everything and meeting other people that had probably better schooling would be an understatement. It just sort of solidified, so now I sound like this. But my family predominantly are like sort of a more Essex Cockney twang. Like, oh my God. My Auntie Pam's always like, oh my God. But I can't even mimic it anymore. So yeah. Then I grew up in Kent. I'm really excited to talk to you about my primary school because it's actually fucking jokes. Both of my education institutions, secondary and primary, both held Ofsted upon my arrival, which is fun. And I wrote down a load of stuff that I wanted to talk about my primary school because it's actually crazy. First off, we had a World War II bunker, like museum on the school grounds that we all used to go around, and it was my favourite day when they were like, we're going to go around. And it was a small outbuilding, and it had this walkway through, and it had loads of memorabilia from the Blitz. It had like children's toys, and it smelled, I can remember loving the smell. It was like mold. it was like mold and damp and old, like a museum or like a basement. I loved it. It was my favourite thing to do. Just editing this, by the way, you'll notice that I hold this upside down, but I'm not faking it. I don't know why. My friend bought it for me, but the pages are the right way up if it's upside down, which is classic because she got me this to organise my life, and I got the only one that actually goes like this. It's not meant to be like this. So yeah, I wasn't just holding it upside down by accident. Okay, bye. Do I start? Okay, so in primary school, I used to have this thing. I would cry every morning, and my mum had to wrestle me from the teachers. I would bite teachers. I bit teachers, and I remember being restrained. And I would cry, and I don't know why, but I did every morning. So they ended up getting me a one-on-one therapist in my primary school called Kate Watson, that was it. And she was a singer, and they used to do in our local like promenade thing. I mean, you can't go there now, it's so dangerous, but they used to do like concerts there, and she would sing in it, and she was like my idol. But we devised a plan to get me going in every day, which was I would create like a horse journal. I was a horse girl. I loved horses. They were all over my wall. So we would create this like pamphlet book of information on how to look after a horse, and we drew in it because I love drawing, and I created this huge book of like horse facts, if you like. It did bits for me, actually, thinking about it. I started going into school, although I hated my experience. I did not have a fun school time. I was not a schoolgirl. They I think because I struggled with spelling and just overall being a human, they put me in special measures, which is funny because I went off to study literature at Manchester Uni, so don't let them tell you what you should and shouldn't be. So we had this teacher take over, who later transpired as the head teacher. She got escorted off the grounds by the police for fraud. We came up with this plan that she was an evil goblin. We used to call it the fairy game. She was like, our plan in school was to take down the head teacher, and I remember I had a friend called Azimwa, who bit my mum in the playground, by the way, once. She was weird. She was one of my best friends, but she was fucking weird. She went up to this head teacher and was like, I know what you're planning. Because she had like a slight sort of transatlantic accent. I know what you're planning. You can't fool us. Funny, when you think that the teacher then got escorted off the grounds by the police, but maybe Azimwa was onto something. Certain teachers were goblins that we had to take down. There was one called Mrs. Mullins, and she was Scottish, and she cordoned up the playground into like sections where you had to be doing a certain activity in that section. You couldn't run free. So me and my posse used to run around through all the lines and be like, you can't contain us, you don't have any right. Got into a lot of trouble. A big attitude problem in school with another. She was a choir singer. You know how you see the memes where it's like when you're like singing cabbages and you'd sit like silent. I'd take it one step further and just be like, I would give her the skank face, like, bitch, I'm not fucking singing. I'm not fucking singing. Are you serious? I will not conform to this shite, is basically what I said. And the problem is with this teacher, the Scottish one, my dad had taught me a few phrases on Scottish slang, right? So he tells me, Ailish, what you need to do is just tell that teacher, pog my horn. Well, I did. I went up to her and I went, my daddy told me to tell you pog my horn. She did not like it. And then another one was a lus macaque. I think it was. It's been a while. I can't say it without my nose bubbling with snot. But I was like, I lost my macaque. Mum gets called in, doesn't she? Obviously. Ridiculous. I get in trouble. But I think it's all character building, to be honest with you. I had this other teacher called Mrs. Richardson. She was putting on her sunscreen, whatever. And she had like a little bit left here, and I was like, ha, miss, you look like Charlie Chaplin. Well, no, I don't. I think you'll find, Ailish, because Charlie Chaplin had the same moustache as Hitler. What? Oh, and I also remember on the field, we found a condom on a brick. All the memories are flooding back to me. Honestly, this is so much fun. Then I did do my SATs. Didn't pass my SATs. I think I was off by like 50 marks, and my mum, being the wonderful mother that she is, was like, you were so close. It's not for you. That doesn't matter. Like, you were so close. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I ended up going to a Church of England school called St. George's. By the way, this is all in Gravesend, so I don't know if you need to understand the town that I was in, but it was used to be a lovely place. It's not anymore. So the basic premise of how this school worked, right? Because we joined it, and then it failed Ofsted. I don't know if I have any correlation to do with this. I don't think so. I think that'd be wishful thinking. But we would obviously do your normal Monday to Friday. It was a state school called, I always get confused, public schools or private schools. It wasn't any of those. It actually turned into an academy in my last couple of years there. But every Friday we had to go to church. And we had this chaplain called, I'm not going to give her name, but it's similar. Let's call her Sarah. And she was this short, sort of rounded lady who there was rumours of her having like loads of like sado sex equipment, which you never really know with folks in the church. So, you know, rumour or not, unless it's disproved, it sort of solidifies as fact, which is a little bit of whimsical philosophy for you there. So I did not have a good time in my secondary school experience. I had no confidence, and the first few years I was like Hermione Granger. I tried hard at everything, and I didn't necessarily have many I didn't necessarily have many friends. Like I was sort of just hang around with the people that had no one else to hang around with. So for the first 2 years, I like accumulated so many achievement points. I was literally like, I put in so much effort with all of my homework and all of my work, and I got to know the teachers really well. Like, the teachers loved me, and I loved them too, like, so much. They really shaped me as a person. As you get a bit older and as I go through, you'll see how that relationship sort of taints and twists and gets a bit toxic from some teachers, but for the most part, they really helped me with my confidence, and I used to sit with them in lunch, and they used to drive me home. I used to spend after school with them most of the time. Yes, they used to do this like end of year, like celebratory thing, and like who has the most achievements, and you go from like bronze, silver, gold, platinum. It was, I think I had like 500 and something achievement points, and yeah, I liked the most. And I remember going up and collecting it and being like, woo. And I had this French teacher called Mr. Coral, who I adored. He was great. I liked him. I remember looking on my account, and I had a bad point. I can't remember, what were they called? Not a misdemeanor. A bad achievement point, let's call it. And it was for no French homework. And I was like, what the fuck? I've never not given him my French homework. What the fuck is Mr. Coral on about? He's seeing things. He's hallucinating, because there's no way that I would have got no homework in on the day that needed homework. So I ran to his room. I was like, sir, you've given me a bad achievement mark. He was like, what? And I was like, look on your system, file it up, find it, execute it, because that is just fucking lies. I don't know if he ever did actually, but I imagine he found it quite funny that I was so wanting those marks, like the house points. Before I got into this sort of crowd, that she later became one of my best friends, but before that happened, I remember I used to doodle an awful lot in my math book, my English book at the back. Like, I would write down all of the cast that I liked. I'd plan my own films, and I would doodle on my hands and everything, and I would also sketch scenes from films. So I remember sketching one from The Fellowship, which was when Weathertop, so Frodo, getting massacred by all these hooded cloaks with a blade. And then I did one of, you know, from Sinister, where they're all hanging from the tree with bags over their heads. And my mum gets called in because they're concerned about my welfare, and I had to do more therapy then. Honestly, bless them. But I was just so passionate about film and Lord of the Rings, and I was known for it, right? Like, the teachers, so I imagine they appreciated, I would hope so, that they appreciated my passion for things that weren't necessarily the mainstream. Now that's quite cool, but at the time, like 20 years ago, no, I'm not that old, 15 years ago, it probably wasn't that cool. This was before social media. Like, I didn't even have a phone in the first few years of school. I had like, this first one was like a Nokia, which is like a block, and it survived everything, which phones don't survive long with me. I don't know if that's also a curse, but they always end up breaking. Oh my god. So that was like year 7, 8, the first 2 years of my schooling. Very good, didn't get into much trouble, was an oddball. I then get invited to go ice skating with these 2 girls who, as I say, one turned out to be one of my best friends, but there was troubles. And then I remember calling my mum, because they wanted to go back, because we'd met my next door neighbour at the ice rink, and they thought he was cute, and I was like, oh, I live next to him. I think that's how it panned out. And I rang my mum and was like, can these two girls come and stay at ours, mum. On the side, I was like, mum, they're really popular. This is it. This is going to be the best thing ever. Like, please, you have to let them come and stay. And they did. And then sort of snowballed from there. So then for the last couple of years of that schooling, I had a bigger group of friends that I'd say was a really good thing for my confidence, but also got me involved in also a lot of activities that were damaging. So like drinking, smoking, all of that stuff that I think now looking back on it, I definitely wouldn't have got involved in. Everyone makes their own decisions. It's just a reflection, and I certainly was up for it all. But I do get sometimes I'm like, it was an option that perhaps it would have been nice not to have gone down, an alleyway that would have been nice not to go down. But unfortunately, that's how. The hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? So from that moment on, I was in with this group of girls, right? And it was really like some really lovely moments I had, equally some really awful moments, because you know what it's like as a girls group, shit goes down. And I think because I didn't have this emotional map, I didn't have this territory of interactions down. I know no one does, but I do think I just didn't have that emotional territory mapped, and I didn't understand people. Really fucking struggled to understand people's motives, and to me everyone was just nice. And I think because I went forward with this idea that everyone was by their word, because I tried really hard to, it was very honest as a person, as an honest person, and I was honestly weird and just myself, that it could rub people up the wrong way. So I had to deal with a lot of the repercussions of that, and perhaps like people not necessarily believing me that I didn't understand things. And I was always casted with this shadow of doubt, like whether it was all for like people thinking that I just act the way that I do for attention, or because it's I think it's cool, or I like being weird. Like I felt like I was labelled as a bit of an attention seeker, and I actually did, because they did awards at the end of the school and I got drama queen, which really, really fucking affected me, because that is not how I in my mind and in my body and in my soul was. I was dealing with an awful lot at home, an awful lot going on at school with bullying and all this stuff that, okay, I might have reacted at certain things, but they were always only honest. Nothing was ever calculated, and it was pure to who I was as a person. And to be labelled as that by the teachers was horrid, considering, like, obviously I was in therapy at the time and all this stuff. I was a very hyperactive kid, so I can understand why people back then would have thought that was an attention-seeking thing or a ploy, but generally wasn't. It just, for me, life was so chaotic in my head that I didn't know how to react to the small things, which, we learn as we grow up, but I'm still struggling with it now. It does upset me though, because it really set me back in front of the whole school. And the problem is, because I was dealing with so much, when they called it in the church, I sort of sat back and was like, I'm not getting up for that, which proved their point, I suppose, which is really, really heartbreaking. I really struggled with that. After that, I sort of went a bit quiet at school and really took it under my skin. I ended up getting my first boyfriend over summer of year 10, so I must have been 15, I think. And that was a strange obstacle in itself, because I think I did like him, but I was so frigid at the time. I hadn't done anything before this point, and the girls that I was with had done, some hadn't done anything, and some had done quite a lot, all the way. So I was very confused, and like we're saying, that emotional territory that I didn't map. I didn't know what was right and wrong and what was normal, and I was just in such a desperate state to feel something and do something. So yeah, well, had that ended after a few weeks, and just the amount of rumours that went round, my god, it was horrible. Really, really scarred me, because the rumours reached the teachers, and it was, like I said before, the distrust in me as a person from everyone around me just sort of believed that I was weird and that it was true, and that I couldn't possibly be emotionally scarred by it, because I was so hyperactive and forthcoming with who I was as a person. I literally wore everything on my sleeve, and someone who does that, you know, must be doing it for attention. Therefore, what she actually wears on her sleeve must be wrong. Didn't know how to cope with that. Rumours, I ended up losing all the girlfriends for a bit. And I can understand that I might not have been the easiest person to be around, like, but I was never mean. And I think, you know, kind is one of the biggest things someone can be, and that's what I look for now in my life, is kind people. People who you trust, you know, that you can trust with your feelings, because I never really had that. So that sort of died down, and then I ended up getting a boyfriend. I was 14 then. I ended up getting a boyfriend after that who was, so I was 15 and he was 21, I think. 20 fucking one, and a 15-year-old. My God. And we used to hang out in his garden with because I ended up getting back friends with the girls, and we used to hang out in his like shed that was like a pub in our school breaks, because we started having periods off. So we'd hang out in there, and I remember one of the girls who I don't speak to at all now. I haven't spoken to her in like 10 years, I think. She was like, you need to make up your decision whether you want to date him or not. Being the way I was like, okay, I'll date him. He used to drive me around in school. I think I've told this story before on my TikTok, but he used to drive me in and out of school, and he used to get angry and slam doors, and the teachers didn't like him. They were like, he's bad, all of this, all of that. And because I was doing cheerleading at the time, I was coming in every month with a new black eye. So they put two and two together and thought it was him, called the police. And okay, so let me rewind, let me set this up. So how this works is, I got this boyfriend, he's 21. We used to go to he had like, it's the first time I smoked weed was in his shed as well. Breaks in our periods, me and these two girls, and we'd drink and we'd smoke and crazy shit, right? It's like 15, this is just insane. Because I was just so thirsty for feeling normal, I suppose it led me down a path that was abnormal. Set me up for some really bad things in my life, it did. And so he used to drop me off at school. At this point, I had been cheerleading for about 4 years. So we started leveling up. So this was running adjacent to this relationship. It was like a few years in, we started leveling up in our cheer, so we're doing harder stunts. So I started coming in with black eyes. And he would often drive me into the school and then slam doors and race off and everything. The teachers would see it and they were worried about it. I then decided to break this relationship off, right? Because it felt wrong. The worst part is, as I remember with all of this, is that I was so anti-drinking, anti-relationships. I thought it was so silly. Everything was silly. And then the way that things sort of escalated in my school and snowballed, these things became more and more normal to me. And it's annoying because I wish I'd kept that security in that place where I was keeping myself safe, but I didn't, which is sad. But you should never really regret, just learn. I'm trying that. Yeah, so I ended up cutting him off. That doesn't go well. I'm talking, he is driving past my house, shouting slut, slag, throwing shit at my window. I used to live opposite this little cul-de-sac of like from Tesco's. And I used to have to get my brother to walk me over there because I couldn't go over there on my own. I was so scared. I'm outside my dad's flat. My mum and dad are separated at this point. And I'm putting stuff in his boot, and his car comes up right behind me, drives so close to the back of my legs, and I turn around like this, and then he drives off past, and I was like, right, this is enough. The school got involved, the police got involved. The police came to the school and I had to talk to them. The teachers had already noticed like certain things that were going wrong, like obviously the slamming the doors and the black eyes. The black eyes were separate. That was from cheerleading. Anyone that does cheerleading will know, and you guys have seen my face on online recently when I was doing cheerleading again last year. I get black eyes, okay? It happens. You got feet above your head, it comes down, you're gonna get a black eye. Called a restraining order. And he found out. I ended up dropping it. I can't remember why, but I remember having to write a list and just like detail all of these things. But at the time, my head was also so chaotic, so I didn't know what to do with all this information. And then what happened? It died down. It died down, but someone left a big black dildo outside our house. He left a dildo, and my mum was disgusted by it, and we like kicked it into the road. The next day, it was on our doorstep. I'm not saying it was him, but there was a big black dildo on our doorstep. I don't know who it was. The mystery of the big black dildo man. Who knows? Or woman. I don't discriminate. Could be either. I remember it was one of the girls' birthday parties in this like rugby field, whatever it was. I don't know. And he was there, and she sort of was. She was just like, you need to go and apologise, or you need to go and say, like, I had so much control over what I did, man. I just hate that I didn't stick up for myself. And I did, and he was like, why did you call the police on me? And I was like, bro, you're like 22 now, and you're chasing a 15, 16-year-old girl in your car. What am I going to do? My dad found out later anyway, like 8 months after it happened, and he was like, why didn't you tell me? I would have gone round there with a bit of nail, like a bit of a wooden plank with nails in it, and I would have beaten the shit out of him. And I was like, that's why I didn't tell you. But that's a military father for you. So that was my second boyfriend. I'm going to paraphrase a few instances that I want to talk about, but I want to get on to another story. Got my first detention in maths, and the windows were like, on one end it was like a 2-story drop, on the other end it was like that of a drop, and because it was on a slope on the outside. So I was in there, teacher goes to the staff room and I jump out the window. And do you know what? He never brought it up. He never said anything about it. And I legged it. Never brought it up again. I can just imagine him coming back to the room like, oh, she's gone. Whatever. Yeah, I also used to do lots of dance. It was my saving grace was dance and drama in school. I had this teacher called Mr. Higson. I often try and find him now. Mr. Higson, I cannot thank you enough for what you did for me. This man was incredible, and he knew me inside out. Like he cast me as Abigail Williams in the school play, right, The Crucible, and we rehearsed for like, I think it's like 5 months, and not once really did I fully say my lines, and I would get so angry and swear at him, and I was just dealing with an awful lot, and I was like, fuck you, this is stupid. And the cast would be like, you need to cast someone else, and he was like, no, she'll do it. He believed in me, that despite struggles in rehearsals and not wanting to do anything and being very, 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 very insecure to even do it, he believed on me to put it out on the big day, and I did for him. And I can't even begin to describe that trust that it built in me, installed in me, that went forward throughout my whole life, because that man was unbelievable. And I find it, looking back on it now, I was clearly, as an adult, I can look at it and go, I was clearly really suffering, but I still pushed myself to do things no matter what. Like, it's 5 months of twice a week after school hours, and the struggle I went through to publicly speak, and I still did it. Come on. I'm really proud of myself, and I'm thankful for Mr. Higson, incredibly, and my other teacher, Miss Price. She was my dance teacher. I spent a lot of time, she used to drive me home from school and stuff. So I have very fond memories of those two. They really, really did bits for me, and so did these other teachers as well. Some hated me, and that's the story I was going to say. I, in maths once, drew a big throbbing penis on a maths book with a supply teacher. Throbbing, I'm talking. But the thing is, it wasn't just me that drew it, it was all the girls. We all added veins and pubes and all this shit, and we put it on the back of our, hi baby, we put it on the back of like this workbook, and we would walk around with it at the back and ask people questions. I don't know what's so funny about fucking penises at that age, but it was. We're going around asking people, like, and not like acknowledging that there's a big throbbing dick on the back of this book. And I got told off for that. Exclusion, got sent out the class. They sent a letter home to my mother, and the letter was like, we're concerned that Ailish is watching too much porn because of how detailed the dick was. They were concerned. Now, I considered myself a little bit of an art connoisseur. For my birthdays, my mum used to take me to art galleries. We saw the Lucy and Freud exhibition. So they call my mum in. My mum's like, what? Like, no, she's just an art lover, which sounds so wrong, but the fact that they accused my mum of watching porn with me was crazy. What the fuck? Just I have an appreciation for the male form in the art world. Yeah, that's sort of part one on my experience and some anecdotes, and I'd like to do another one next week. I like sitting out here in the sun. I don't like doing it in my room. I feel like I can't think. So I really enjoyed today, actually. It's been really fun. But next time I'll probably come back on my A-levels, which was was a mad experience. And then obviously my university and my master's experience. And then maybe my first few years of work. But along the way, sorry, if I come up with anything that I've missed, I will fucking bring it up. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe, and also find me by the same handle on all other platforms. Thank you. Look at this. How can one ever get anything done when she's like this? Hey. Thank you guys. I love you all. I hope you've enjoyed. Bye.